Welcome to Echo Forge, dark fantasy and sci-fi stories from the edges of forgotten worlds. If you enjoy this kind of storytelling, hit like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss the next vision. Now, let's step through the gate.
Residue. The contract arrived the way bad news did out on the fringe. Quietly, already decided, framed as a favor. Sera's cockpit lights were low, the Sable's instrument panel throwing a cold wash across her knuckles and the inside of her jaw. Ahead, the stars weren't the romantic kind you saw on recruitment posters. Out here, they were points of distance, each one a reminder of how long help took to arrive, if it arrived at all. A single notification bloomed on her console. Incoming, transfer authorization. She didn't tap it right away. She listened to the ship instead. The thin harmonic whine of the jump coil, the steady whisper of air circulation through vents that had been cleaned too many times to ever truly be clean. The Sable was a compact cutter hull with a government spine and private owner scars, patched plating, a temperamental inertial compensator, a cockpit seat that held the shape of her back like an accusation. Sera finally opened the file. Redaction blocks filled the screen like bruises. Interstellar Marshal's Service. Temporary deputization assignment, type, transfer/escort origin. Halcyon Fringe, Outpost 7. Destination, Kestrel Asset Detention Node, KADN. Cardanus Arcology, Subject. Mercer. Eli Charges. Case File. Jurisdiction. Redacted Special Conditions. Maintain custody. Avoid delay. No unscheduled communications. Payment. On receipt of corporate signature. Sera's eyes tracked down the empty lines where a legal spine should have been. No charges, no case number, no court tag, no warrant ID, no jurisdictional seal she could challenge or verify. Just a destination that wasn't a prison in any public registry and a clause that told her not to talk to anyone while she did it. She leaned back, the chair's worn padding creaking.
"That's not custody,"
she muttered.
"That's shipping."
On the right edge of the file, a deposit authorization sat like a quiet hand on her shoulder. The numbers were generous enough to make her suspicious and tired enough to make her consider it anyway. Out here, money wasn't luxury. It was fuel, filters, heat, oxygen cartridges, the kind of supplies you didn't notice until you were rationing them. She hovered her thumb over accept. A memory flashed, her old supervisor back in the service saying, "We're not couriers." The same supervisor, 3 months later, signing paperwork that ended her commission because her last case had made a senator's nephew look bad. Integrity was expensive. She'd learned that the hard way. Sera hit accept. The contract countersigned instantly, as if the sender had been waiting with a finger poised over their own button. That, more than the money, raised the fine hairs along her forearm. Halcyon Fringe Outpost 7 drifted ahead on her approach vector. A knot of pressurized modules bolted to a rock like someone had tried to staple civilization to emptiness. Floodlights painted hard cones into the dark, turning drifting dust into glittering snow. The station's beacon blinked steady and confident, a lie told in Morse code. When Sera requested docking, clearance came back before she'd finished the phrase. Cleared. Bay 3. Welcome, Marshal. She didn't like being welcomed by strangers who didn't know her name. The Sable latched into Bay 3 with a judder that traveled up her spine. She ran her standard shutdown checks, then sat for one extra breath with her hand on the cabin's inner hatch lever. A job was a job. She told herself that like a mantra, Keep it procedural, keep it clean. Still, no case file. She stepped into the airlock, cycled, and felt Halcyon's station air slide over her skin. Recycled, dry, faintly metallic. The scent of people living too close together with machines doing the hard work of keeping them alive. Two men waited on the other side. One was outpost security, patched suit, tired eyes, boots that had been repaired more times than replaced. His helmet was tucked under one arm, revealing a jawline that looked like it had met a fist and refused to lose. A working man's face. The other man stood just half a step away, but might as well have been a different species. Clean jacket, unscuffed shoes, hair trimmed with a precision nobody bothered with on Halcyon, unless they were being paid to look presentable. His smile was calibrated, pleasant without warmth, confident without invitation. Corporate.
Marshal Kade,
The outpost guard said, nodding. Sera stopped a pace away, letting the distance speak.
Temporary deputy.
She corrected automatically. The guard's mouth twitched.
Sure, that.
The corporate man extended a hand like they were about to close a real deal, like the redactions weren't hanging in the air between them.
Ms. Kade, I'm Lorne Davy, corporate liaison for this transfer.
Sera didn't take his hand. She looked at it, then at his eyes.
You're not the service.
No,
Davy agreed, unbothered.
but we work closely with the service in the interests of safety and continuity.
I saw your paperwork.
Excellent.
There's no charge listed, no case number.
Davy's smile held.
This is a corporate internal matter.
Sera shifted her weight. She could feel the outpost guard watching, wanting this to be easy. Halcyon lived and died by cooperation with corporations. A single lost contract could mean half the station's air recyclers didn't get replaced on schedule. Sera kept her voice flat.
Custody without charges isn't custody.
It is,
Davy said gently.
under the agreement you accepted when you signed the contract.
Sera's jaw tightened.
The agreement you paid me to accept.
Davy's eyes flicked, just slightly. A crack in the calibration.
You were paid,
He said.
to transport a subject from here to Cardenas. Nothing more.
People aren't subjects.
Davy's smile finally cooled by a degree.
In my work,
He said.
they often are.
Sera turned her head to the outpost guard.
Where is he?
The guard looked relieved to be asked something practical.
holding cells, this way.
They walked down Halcyon's main corridor, boots clanging softly on gridded deck plating. The station was all function. Pipes wrapped in insulation, seams sealed with overpaint, condensation collecting in corners like the place was sweating. People moved past in utilitarian coveralls, hands stained with rock dust and grease. They looked at Sera's coat and badge the way you looked at a weapon, curious, wary, and resentful of the power it represented. The holding area was 3 rooms welded on near the station's back spine. The door seals were older than Sera's career. A thin camera stalk watched her approach. Davy keyed a lock. The door hissed open. The cell was barely more than a square with a bolted bench and a light strip that turned everyone's skin the color of bad paper. A man sat on the bench, hands cuffed in front of him. The chain between cuffs was short, forcing his shoulders forward. He stood when the door opened, slow and controlled. Eli Mercer. Sera had seen every kind of prisoner in her years. Loud ones who performed outrage, quiet ones who performed humility, dangerous ones who performed nothing at all. Mercer didn't perform. He looked contained, like someone who had learned that emotions were a resource you spent carefully. He wasn't imposing. He wasn't small either. Lean, wiry, the body of a worker. His hair was clipped close in a station-cut way. There was a faint scar at his throat, pale against darker stubble. His knuckles were raw, split, the kind of injury you got from punching something hard when there was nothing else you could hit. His eyes met Sera's for a moment, steady, tired, and then flicked past her shoulder, checking the corridor behind. Exits, angles, distance. Not the behavior of a man planning an attack, but of a man whose nervous system had been taught to map danger. Davy spoke like he was reading a shipping label.
Mercer, your transport has arrived.
Mercer didn't look at him. His gaze stayed on Sera.
Marshal?
He said. His voice was rough, not from yelling, from disuse, from dehydration, from holding words in until they became stones.
Deputy.
Sera corrected again, though softer now. She didn't know why she cared. Habit, pride, the need to put a line somewhere. Mercer's mouth moved like he almost smiled.
Right.
Sera stepped one pace into the cell, enough to see the cuffs clearly. Corporate manufacture, wide banding, sealed locks, no visible mechanical release. Not restraint meant for court. Restraint meant for property.
What are you charged with?
Sera asked. Davy's tone sharpened.
Ms. Kade.
Mercer answered anyway.
Nothing.
He said. Sera looked at Davy.
Nothing.
Corporate internal matter.
Davy repeated, like a prayer. Sera crouched slightly and looked at Mercer's cuffs, not touching yet.
Any medical condition I should know about?
Mercer's eyes flicked up to the ceiling corner where the station camera sat.
I'm alive.
He said.
That's not an answer.
It's the only one they've allowed me to keep.
Mercer said. Sera stood. The outpost guard shifted, uncomfortable. Davy's patience was thinning by molecules. Sera took out her own restraints. Lighter, timed locks keyed to her biometrics, the kind the service issued for humane custody. She snapped them onto Mercer's wrists over the corporate cuffs, linking them with a tether ring she could clip to her belt. Davy watched, expression blank.
Corporate restraints remain engaged during transit.
Sera didn't look at him.
Redundant.
Required.
Sera met his eyes.
I'm responsible for anything that happens in my ship.
And we are responsible.
Davy said.
For ensuring our asset arrives intact.
Asset. There it was again. The word that always made the air taste worse. Mercer didn't react to the new cuffs. He didn't flinch when the tether clipped. He simply shifted his weight as if adjusting to another limitation, another set of rules he hadn't chosen. Sera nodded once.
Let's go.
They walked Mercer through Halcyon's corridor. A small procession people pretended not to watch. The outpost guard kept his gaze forward. Davy walked like he owned the air. Mercer walked like he was counting breaths. At Bay 3, Sera cycled her ship's airlock. The Sable's interior was cramped, utilitarian, and familiar in a way Halcyon wasn't. Her ship smelled faintly of old coffee and metal, and the stubbornness of someone who refused to stop moving. She guided Mercer into the forward bench, secured his tether to a ring bolt, and checked the locks. Corporate cuffs, her cuffs, everything engaged. Mercer sat, shoulders slightly hunched, eyes tracking the cabin. He looked at the vents like they mattered. Sera noticed because she'd learned to notice what people looked at when they thought no one was watching. She didn't ask about the vents. Not yet. She moved to the cockpit, sealed the inner hatch, and initiated undocking. Halcyon's clamps released with a reluctant groan. The station fell away, a lit scab on a rock. A comm ping sounded. Davi's voice, now over ship channel, smooth and precise.
Miss Kade, reminder. No unscheduled communications. No deviations. Deliver the subject.
Sera stared at the dark beyond the canopy.
Copy.
She said. The channel cut. She set course for Cardenas Arcology and engaged the drive. The jump lane took hold like a hand closing around the ship. Space stretched and folded. The Sable hummed and shuddered, then smoothed into the steady vibration of transit. Hours passed. The kind of hours that weren't measured by scenery changes, but by the rhythm of machine sounds and your own thoughts. Sera ate a protein bar over the console. She ran the same diagnostics twice, not because the ship needed it, but because her mind needed something to do besides circle the missing case number. In the forward compartment, Mercer sat without moving much. When he did shift, it was small, careful. He didn't test the cuffs. He didn't ask for water until the second day, and when he did, it was quiet, like asking cost him something. Sera handed him a pouch. Their fingers didn't touch. On day 2, she tried to ping a Marshal Service contact through an encrypted channel she still technically had access to. One of those leftover privileges nobody had bothered to revoke yet. The message returned a single line. Access denied. Jurisdiction restricted. She stared at it until the letters stopped being letters and became a shape, a door closing. That night, she woke to a faint sound. Not a bang, not a shout. A soft scrape, like a fingernail dragged along metal, then stopped. Sera sat up in her bunk, heart rate climbing. Silence. The ship's ventilation whispered. She got up, moved barefoot down the corridor, and peered through the forward compartment's doorway. Mercer was awake, sitting on the bench. His head was tilted slightly, listening, not to her, but to the ceiling. His eyes tracked one of the vent grills. Sera's voice came out sharper than she meant.
What are you doing?
Mercer's head turned slowly. His expression was neutral, but something in his posture was tense.
Nothing.
He said.
You were listening.
Mercer's gaze flicked back up for a heartbeat, then down.
Habit.
What habit?
Mercer didn't answer. His jaw worked once, like he was chewing on a word he didn't want to swallow. Sera folded her arms.
You want to tell me why your paperwork has no charges?
Mercer's eyes lifted to her face. He studied her like he was measuring whether she was real. Then he said,
Do you know what they call it when there's no case file?
Sera held his gaze.
I know what I call it.
Mercer's mouth tightened.
What?
Disappearing.
Sera said. Mercer's shoulders dropped a fraction, like the word had taken weight off him and put it somewhere else.
Yes.
He said, almost a whisper. Sera exhaled.
Why you?
Mercer looked past her, toward the cockpit, toward the canopy beyond, as if he could see through metal into the lane's distorted stars.
Because
He said carefully.
I'm the part they couldn't burn.
Sera didn't like that.
What does that mean?
Mercer hesitated.
If I tell you,
He said.
you'll start looking at doors differently.
Sera's eyes narrowed.
Are you threatening me?
No?
Mercer shook his head.
I'm warning you, not about me.
Sera stared at him, her annoyance thinning into something else, something that felt inconveniently like concern.
You're not going to like it.
Mercer said.
I don't have to like it,
Sera replied.
but I have to deliver you.
Mercer's eyes held hers.
I know.
A pause. Then Sera said.
Talk.
Mercer swallowed.
Not here. Not with the ship listening.
Sera almost laughed, but the sound died before it formed.
The ship listening?
Mercer's gaze drifted up just slightly, toward the vent again.
You ever notice,
He said, voice low.
how vents make every place feel like one room?
Sera didn't answer. Mercer took a slow breath.
Give me time,
He said.
and I'll tell you.
Sera stood there a moment longer than she should have, the ship's cold air brushing her skin. Then she turned away and went back to her bunk, heart still thudding, not from fear of him, but from the shape of his words. The part they couldn't burn. On day 3, Mercer finally spoke without being asked.
I was a medical technician,
He said, voice rough.
on a mining vessel.
Sera didn't look back from the cockpit. She kept her eyes on the instruments, letting her posture remain procedural.
Name of the vessel?
Mercer hesitated.
The Kestrel 7.
Sera's fingers paused over a switch.
Kestrel.
She repeated, tasting the word. It was too close to the name of the detention node, like branding, like ownership. Mercer's laugh was almost silent.
Yeah,
Sera's shoulders tightened.
Go on.
Mercer's breath came slow.
we found something.
He said,
A cache?
No,
Stolen tech?
no. His voice thinned.
An unclaimed asteroid.
Sera glanced over her shoulder then, just a little.
That's not a crime.
Mercer's eyes flicked to her, then back down.
It wasn't,
He said.
until it was.
Sera turned her chair enough to face him properly, still belted in.
Tell it from the beginning.
She said. Mercer nodded once, like he'd been waiting for permission. His eyes unfocused, not in the way of a liar searching for details, but in the way of someone opening a door in their own head that they'd kept locked for survival. When he spoke again, the ship around Sera seemed to recede. The cockpit lights dimmed into background. The hum of the jump coil became a distant sea. Mercer's voice carried her somewhere else.
We were 8 on the Kestrel 7, and most of the time that felt like too many. Not because we didn't like each other, though some days liking was a luxury, but because a ship that small meant you couldn't avoid anyone. There were no long corridors to cool off in, no hidden corners where you could be alone without someone noticing you were missing. Every argument echoed. Every laugh became communal. Every bad mood was recycled through the air system until it belonged to everyone. The Kestrel 7 was corporate property, leased out for deep belt extraction contracts. She wasn't built to be pretty. She was built to be profitable. A working hull with a drill rig bolted to her spine and cargo pods strapped along her flanks like barnacles. We called her K7 because naming her properly felt like inviting attachment. The company swapped hulls like tools. If you got sentimental, you got hurt. Captain Rourke ran her. Late 50s, maybe older, face-lined in a way that made you think of old rope. He didn't shout much. He didn't have to. His disappointment was enough to make you straighten up. He'd been in the belt long enough to know what the company did to people who caused problems. Mina Yoon kept the ship alive. Engineer. Small, sharp. Hands always stained with lubricant no matter how often she scrubbed. She treated the Kestrel 7 like a stubborn animal. She spoke to it, coaxed it, swore at it, threatened it, and somehow it listened. Aliyah Kin ran comms and navigation. She was young enough to still believe in the idea of promotion. She kept a little charm, some printed plastic trinket, taped to her console. She said it was for luck. Mina said it was for idiots. Jack Snorri was rig lead. Big laugh, bigger mouth, a man who could make boredom feel like a party if you let him. He had a habit of flipping a small metal token between his fingers when he talked. He'd carved it out of scrap one slow shift, filed the edges smooth, stamped a crude star on one side.
We find a rock.
He'd say, tossing it.
We're rich. We're out.
Tomas Reed ran the drill cradle. Quiet, steady, the kind of man you trusted because he didn't need to talk to prove he knew what he was doing. He had a wife on a station somewhere. He listened to her voice notes like prayers in his bunk at night. One earbud in, eyes closed, lips moving silently with words only he could hear. Dr. Sato ran medical. Calm, efficient. The only one aboard who had a real license in anything the company couldn't fake with a waiver. He treated us like patients, not assets, which was its own kind of rebellion. And me, I was medical support. Tech. Not the hero kind. I stocked the auto-injectors, patched cuts, ran scans, rehydrated IV packs, and tried to convince grown men that ignoring a fever in deep space was a bad idea. The ship's routine was work and sleep and maintenance. The days blurred into each other because the stars didn't change and the company didn't care what day it was, as long as the output numbers hit target. On shift change, we played a stupid game with Jax's token. He'd flick it through the air, and whoever caught it had to make a prediction. Something small and hopeful, even if we didn't believe in hope.
If I catch it,
Mina would say.
the coolant pump doesn't die this week.
If I catch it,
Aaliyah would say.
we get one message from home that isn't a bill.
If I caught it, I usually said nothing. I didn't like tempting the universe. The day we found the asteroid, the token landed in my palm, and it felt warm from Jax's fingers. He grinned at me.
All right, Doc.
He said.
Call it.
I looked down at the stamped star, rubbed smooth from too much handling. I wanted to say something sensible, like we don't die out here. But that wasn't a prediction. That was begging. So I said, we find something worth the risk.
Jax whooped.
That's the spirit.
If I'd known what worth the risk would mean, I would have thrown the token into the recycler. We found the asteroid on a wide sweep. Aaliyah was at her station, humming under her breath, running the survey net. The Kestrel 7 sensors weren't fancy, but they were good enough to find metal in rock and hope in numbers. She sat up abruptly.
Captain, I've got a big return.
Rourke drifted in from the galley with a coffee pouch, moving like the ship was an extension of his body.
Define big.
Aaliyah pulled the projection up. A rotating lump of rock appeared in blue wireframe, speckled with density highlights.
Unregistered,
She said.
no claim tags, no broadcast. I'm not picking up any transponder signature in the area.
Mina glanced up from her open panel.
No broadcast means either nobody found it or somebody doesn't want it found.
Jax leaned over Aaliyah's shoulder, grin wide.
Or the universe loves us.
Rourke ignored him.
Composition?
Aaliyah ran her fingers over the data.
Nickel iron heavy,
She said.
high density pockets, trace rare elements maybe. Hard to confirm without a core sample.
Jax's grin sharpened.
We're going to be rich.
Rourke didn't smile.
We log it.
He said.
We report it. Then we drill.
Mina's mouth tightened.
We report it, and corporate sends a support crew to relieve us of it.
Rourke's eyes flicked to her.
We report it because if we don't, and something goes wrong, they sue our families for breach of contract.
That shut Mina up. Not because she agreed, because it was true. The company wrote contracts like traps. Everything you did belonged to them. Everything you didn't do was your fault. We altered course. As the asteroid grew in the viewport, it looked ordinary. A tumbling mountain of dark rock with glints of metal like buried teeth. No glow, no structures, no warning signs. just a rock. Rourke ordered Thomas to prep the drill. The rig was mounted along the Kestrel 7's spine, a long telescoping cylinder with a rotary head designed to chew through stone and bring back core samples like fat metal bones. We anchored to the asteroid with harpoons, stabilizers biting into rock. Mina monitored stress loads. Aaliyah ran drift calculations. Jax made jokes to keep his hands from shaking. I stayed near the med bay, half watching the drill feed, because I liked to know what kind of injuries might be coming. Drill work meant vibrations, pressure spikes, equipment failure. It meant crushed fingers and fractured ribs if you got careless. The drill engaged. At first it was normal. Vibration through the hull, a steady industrial growl that made the ship feel like it was chewing. Sensors reported density changes. Fine rock dust streamed through filtration, settling everywhere no matter how good your seals were. Hours passed. Then, around hour 6, the vibration changed. Not a stop, a shift in pitch, like a note slipping under your skin. Thomas's voice came through comms, tight.
Captain, I'm reading Void.
Aaliyah frowned.
Void, like a pocket.
Like, empty.
Thomas said.
The bit just punched into nothing. No resistance.
Mina cursed softly.
Cavity.
Rourke didn't like surprises.
Hold.
He ordered.
No further penetration until we have imaging.
Mina patched the drill camera into the main display. The feed came up grainy with dust, then cleared. The drill head had broken into a space larger than it should have been. The beam lit a circle in darkness, revealing not raw stone but a chamber with a floor dusted in fine, pale grit. At first, my brain refused the shape. Then it named it with the closest thing it had. Eggs. Not bird eggs. Not anything earthly. Larger. Knee-high, maybe bigger. Smooth and faintly translucent, clustered in groups like someone had arranged them. Rows. Pathways. A deliberate geometry that had no business existing inside an unclaimed rock. Aaliyah whispered.
What the hell?
Dr. Sato's voice came over the channel, quieter.
Those are not mineral formations.
Mina's hands flew over her panel.
No claim tags?
She muttered.
Yeah. Because nobody wants this in a public registry.
Jax leaned closer to the screen, awe and greed in equal measure.
Are we the first?
Rourke didn't answer. He stared at the eggs like they were a contract clause. Then Aaliyah's console chimed. An incoming tight beam packet. Corporate. She went still.
We didn't even...
She started. Rourke's eyes narrowed as he read.
They were listening.
He said. Mina's face twisted.
Of course they were.
Rourke's voice went flat, like he was reading a weather forecast.
They want a sample.
Dr. Sato cut in, sharp.
Captain,
Rourke held up a hand.
They're dispatching a retrieval team.
He continued.
ETA 3 weeks. They want us to secure the site and gather preliminary material. Documentation, scans, 1 specimen if possible.
Mina stared.
1 specimen?
She echoed.
From an alien nursery.
Jax's grin trembled, but didn't vanish.
We could change history.
Rourke finally looked at him.
We could die.
He said.
We do what we're paid to do.
Aaliyah swallowed hard.
We're paid to mine metal.
Rourke's gaze pinned her.
We're paid to obey.
The argument that followed wasn't loud. It was the kind of argument that happened on ships where shouting wasted oxygen and didn't change outcomes. Dr. Sato insisted on quarantine protocols. He wanted seals, isolation, biohazard procedures we didn't have supplies for. Mina wanted to retract the drill, cap the hole, and pretend we'd found nothing.
Let corporate come drill their own nightmare,
she said. Jax wanted to send footage to a public channel.
If the whole system sees it, they can't bury it,
he argued. Rourke wanted to keep our contracts intact and our families unsued. In the end, power won. Rourke ordered the drone. We had a small inspection unit designed for tight spaces. It was basically a camera with thrusters and a manipulator arm. Not fancy, but useful. Aaliyah piloted it like it was a delicate thing she could coax into behaving. The drone slid down the drill shaft, its lights cutting through dust. The chamber opened up on the feed. There were more eggs than I'd first thought. Hundreds, maybe thousands. Some intact. Some collapsed into brittle husks that looked like old shells. They weren't random. They were arranged in clusters with clear pathways between, like rows in a greenhouse. And at the far end of the chamber, half buried in dust, structures, not rock. Angular ribs, repeating patterns, like scaffolding, like someone had built supports in the stone. The shapes weren't human, but they were intentional. Architecture in the belly of a rock. My throat went dry.
Someone put them there,
I said, though I didn't know to whom I was speaking. Mina's voice came tight. Yeah.
No kidding.
The drone drifted closer. The camera zoomed on the nearest egg. Its surface wasn't smooth up close. Fine lines ran under the translucent skin like veins. They pulsed faintly. Not like a heartbeat exactly, but like slow pressure changes. Aaliyah whispered,
It's alive.
Dr. Sato said,
Do not touch directly. Drone only. Maintain distance.
Rourke nodded.
Extract 1. Corporate wants a specimen.
Aaliyah guided the manipulator arm toward a cluster. The drone's metal fingers closed around the egg gently, like handling an explosive. The egg didn't resist. For half a second, it was just an egg. Then the surface rippled, not cracking, rippling like liquid skin. The egg's top softened and began to peel open in a seam that hadn't been visible before, as if heat had been applied from the inside. Jax breathed.
Oh,
Dr. Sato's voice sharpened.
Aaliyah, retract.
Too late. Something slid out. Not a creature leaping like a predator, not a dramatic spring. It emerged like a ribbon unwinding, a pale, slick organism spilling from the egg in a continuous motion. It looked soft and boneless at first, like a wet strip of muscle, until it flexed and revealed that it had structure. Thin limbs like tendrils, hooked pads, segments that could stiffen or relax. It didn't have a face, no obvious eyes, no mouth gaping like in the horror vids. Just a central body that moved with eerie purpose, tasting the air with tiny sensory filaments. It flowed onto the drone's manipulator arm. Aaliyah yanked the drone backward. The thing clung, its pads sticking to metal.
Shake it,
Mina snapped. Aaliyah spun the drone in a quick rotation, trying to fling the organism off. It didn't let go. Instead, it crawled, smooth, fast, down the drone's arm toward the camera housing, as if drawn to the warm electronics. Its tendrils tapped the lens, not attacking, but exploring. And then it did something that made my stomach flip. It flattened itself against the drone's frame, and the pale skin darkened in places, modeling as if it was trying to match the metal. Camouflage. Not perfect, but instinctive. Dr. Sato whispered.
It adapts.
Rourke barked.
Get it out of there.
Aaliyah pulled the drone back toward the drill shaft. The organism flowed with it, never losing purchase. The drone bumped against the shaft walls, scraping, but the parasite held like it had become part of the machine. Then, as the drone reached the drill breach, our connection between ship and chamber, the parasite changed tactics. It let go.
Not falling. Sliding. It slipped off the drone and vanished into the seam where the drill shaft met the ship's interior housing. For a heartbeat, the camera showed nothing but the empty shaft. Aaliyah's voice went small.
Where did it go?
Mina's face drained of color.
Inside.
She said. Rourke snapped.
Seal the breach.
Mina shot him a look like he'd asked her to stop a flood with her hands.
It's a drill hole,
She snapped.
not a door. We can retract the bit and cap the shaft, but it'll take time.
Time we didn't have. A faint sound came through the hull, barely audible. A soft scrape, like wet fabric dragged along metal. Then nothing. Silence, not quiet. Silence that felt attentive. Dr. Sato's voice came through comms again, controlled but tight.
All crew, initiate contamination protocol. Seal compartments. Limit ventilation exchange as much as possible.
Mina's laugh was bitter.
Ventilation is shipwide, Doc.
Then isolate where you can.
Sato said.
We reduce airflow between compartments. We monitor for anomalies.
Rourke's voice cut in.
Tomas, status at the cradle.
Thomas responded immediately, calm as always.
Cradle secure, drill retraction engaged.
I heard the faint vibration of the drill head beginning to pull back. I told myself the parasite would be caught in the shaft, crushed, or forced out into space. I told myself a lot of things. 5 minutes later, Tomas screamed. Not a long, dramatic scream. A short, involuntary burst of sound, pain and surprise together.
Something.
He gasped over comms.
Something's on the rig.
The channel crackled. Something heavy thumped. Then Thomas's breathing came through, ragged. Rourke barked.
Thomas, report.
No answer. Aaliyah's voice trembled.
Thomas?
There was a wet scraping sound on the comm feed, like cloth rubbing a microphone. Then Thomas's voice came back, wrong. Not words, not sentences. Just a low, guttural sound that carried the cadence of Tomas's breathing patterns, the rhythm of a man about to speak. A familiar human sound stripped of meaning. A residue. My skin prickled. I looked up at the medbay vent grill without thinking, suddenly aware of how much space the ship's ducts connected. Dr. Sato said very quietly,
That's not him.
Mina swore, long and vicious.
It got on him.
Rourke's voice went hard.
Lockdown, seal bulkheads. Mina, shut ventilation baffles between compartments.
Mina snapped.
I'm doing it.
Doors began to cycle shut across the ship. The Kestrel 7's internal bulkheads were meant for fire suppression, not biohazards, but they were all we had. Metal doors slid into place, turning corridors into segments. Red lights pulsed. A ship that had been one shared space became a series of boxes. I ran to medbay because I didn't know what else to do, and because that was my job. Run toward the problem even when you didn't have the tools to solve it. Dr. Sato was already there, pulling a sealed kit from the cabinet. His face was calm, but his eyes were sharp.
Eli,
He said,
prep sedatives, prep restraints. If Thomas comes in, we need to immobilize him.
My mouth was dry. If he comes in, I repeated. Dr. Sato didn't answer that part. A thump sounded outside the medbay door. Then another. Heavy, uneven, like someone walking with bad balance. The door's status light flickered as the ship's power shunted under lockdown loads. Dr. Sato moved to the door and engaged the manual seal, locking it hard.
No one opens this.
He said, voice low.
Not without my authorization.
I nodded, though my hands were already shaking as I pulled a tray out. The medbay was small, a diagnostics chair bolted to the deck, a scanning arch, cabinets of supplies corporate rationed like they were gold. The overhead vent grill above the chair was larger than it needed to be, one of Mina's complaints.
They made it big for airflow,
She'd said.
because airflow costs energy, and they'd rather we share air than have separate ducts.
I stared at it now like it was an open mouth. Over comms, Rourke demanded status updates. Mina responded with clipped technical jargon. Aaliyah sounded like she might cry. Jax kept talking too loud, trying to fill space with bravado. Then the comm channel carried another sound. A low moan. It wasn't Tomas speaking. It wasn't words. It was just a vibration through vocal cords, stretched and flattened. But the cadence, the rise and fall, was familiar enough that my nervous system wanted to believe it was him. Dr. Sato's jaw tightened.
Do not respond.
He told the comm channel.
Do not call to him.
Rourke's voice came tight.
Understood.
Jax's voice cracked.
That's Thomas.
No,
Dr. Sato said sharply.
that's something using Tomas.
Silence followed that, the kind that meant people were processing the idea and not liking what they found. Outside the medbay door, the thumping stopped. A new sound replaced it. A soft scrape along the corridor wall, slow, exploring. Then, faintly, something tapped the medbay door. Once, then twice in quick succession. A pattern. My stomach dropped because I recognized it immediately. Mina's signal. Tap, tap, pause, tap. A knock she used when she'd fixed something and wanted you to open up. Dr. Sato went very still. I didn't tell Mina where we sealed, I whispered. Dr. Sato didn't look at me. His eyes were on the door and the vent and the room all at once, like he was seeing pathways. The tapping stopped. For a heartbeat there was nothing. Then a faint rustle came from the vent above the diagnostics chair. Something moving through metal ductwork, soft enough to be almost imagined. I backed away from the chair, breath catching. Dr. Sato lifted a hand, not in panic, but in caution. He pointed at the vent with 2 fingers, and then at the cabinet where the emergency foam sealant was stored. I moved, silent, pulled the sealant canister out. The vent rustled again. A pale tendril slid into view through the grill, just a hair-thin filament at first, testing the air like a tongue. Then it withdrew. Then the vent grill shifted slightly as if pressure was applied from above. Dr. Sato whispered,
It's using the ducts.
Like a rat, I whispered back. Dr. Sato's eyes stayed on the grill.
Like something that knows warmth travels through them.
The grill bowed. Then a body slid through. The parasite dropped, not onto Dr. Sato's face, not in a dramatic leap, but like a slick strip of muscle falling from a ceiling. It landed on the diagnostics chair's headrest with a wet slap and immediately flowed forward, tendrils spreading. Dr. Sato jerked back instinctively. The parasite hesitated for half a second, sensing, choosing, then launched itself not by jumping, but by snapping its body into a stiffened arc like a whip. It hit Dr. Sato's shoulder blades, and then it began to melt into him. I don't have a better word. Its pale skin pressed against his fabric, and where it touched, the fibers darkened and softened. The organism secreted something, an enzyme, a solvent, that ate through the cloth like it was nothing. It reached skin. Dr. Sato made a strangled sound and grabbed at his back. I saw pale tendrils slide under his collar, disappearing against his neck. Not into his mouth. Into him. The parasite flattened itself along his spine, spreading like a living patch, and its edges began to bond, fusing to skin. I could see the change where it touched. The skin around it reddened and then tightened, as if pulled by invisible sutures. Dr. Sato stumbled, slamming into the diagnostics chair. His hand clawed over his shoulder, trying to get purchase on something that no longer had an edge to grab.
Eli,
He gasped.
cut.
I lunged forward with a scalpel, hands shaking. I hooked the blade under the pale edge near his collar. There wasn't an edge. The parasite had already melded flush with his skin. When I tried to lift, it didn't peel. It stretched, and the stretch was Dr. Sato's skin, too. He screamed then, a short bark of pain that turned my blood cold. The parasite pulsed once, like a muscle contracting. Dr. Sato's body convulsed. I saw small ridges rise under his skin along his neck, as if something was threading itself along nerves. Not burrowing like a worm. Integrating. Mapping him. Learning him. His eyes met mine, wide and frantic.
Sedate me,
He whispered. My hands froze. Doctor,
now.
he hissed. I grabbed an auto-injector, slapped it against his thigh, and triggered it. Dr. Sato's muscles fought the drug. He staggered, hands gripping the chair, breath coming in harsh bursts. The parasite tightened across his back like it was bracing. Then Dr. Sato's breathing slowed. Not calm, controlled. His eyes unfocused for a heartbeat. I took a step back, scalpel still in my hand, my palms slick with sweat. Dr. Sato straightened. His posture changed. Subtle at first, shoulders rolling, spine aligning in a way that didn't look like him relaxing, but like him being repositioned. The parasite's pale patch across his back bulged slightly, as if thickening, as if knitting itself deeper into muscle. Dr. Sato turned his head toward the vent. He listened. Then he tilted his head toward me, like he'd just remembered I was there. His mouth opened. No words came, just a low sound. His voice reduced to a single note, drawn out, vibrating in his throat. Not a scream, not speech. A moan. A residue of Dr. Sato's vocal cords being used because they were available. My legs went weak. Doctor? I whispered anyway, because the human part of me refused to let go that fast. Dr. Sato's eyes flicked to me. For half a second I saw something behind them. Confusion, fear, a trapped awareness. Then his pupils dilated strangely, and whatever was behind them slid away like a shadow. He took a step toward me. I backed up. He took another. The moan came again, softer, almost curious. I hit the medbay door's manual release. It didn't open, because Dr. Sato had sealed it. Because we had locked ourselves inside. The ship's comm crackled with Rourke's voice.
Medical! Report!
Dr. Sato didn't answer with words. He exhaled. That low moan traveled through the comm channel, distorted by the mic into something even less human. Silence answered it. Crew listening, realizing. Mina's voice came through sharp and terrified.
That's Sato.
Aaliyah whispered.
Oh, God.
Jax's bravado cracked.
No, 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 no.
Dr. Sato, the thing wearing Dr. Sato, tilted his head as if listening to the voices. Then he looked back at me, and he moved faster. Not a lunge like an animal. A sudden, direct stride, like a man who had decided to restrain a patient. His hands shot out toward my wrists. I reacted without thinking, swinging the diagnostics chair between us. It slammed into his knees. He barely stumbled. His hand grabbed the chair's metal frame and bent it with strength I had never seen in him. The parasite on his back pulsed again. Dr. Sato's shoulder jerked, and I heard a faint crackle. Bone? Cartilage? Something adjusting under the skin. I ran, not because there was a safe place, because moving was all I had. I dove into the supply locker, slammed the door, and yanked the emergency oxygen cylinder in after me like it was a shield. The locker was barely big enough to crouch. My knees pressed into cold metal. My breath sounded too loud. Outside, footsteps approached. Slow, deliberate. Then the locker door shuddered as a hand pressed against it. Not pounding. Testing. I held my breath so hard my chest hurt. A faint scraping sound came from the locker seam. A thin, pale tendril slipped into view between door and frame, probing like a finger. I clapped my hand over my mouth to keep from sobbing. The tendril withdrew. Silence returned. Brief, thick. Then the ship's ventilation shifted. I could hear it, the fans adjusting, the pressure changes as Mina tried to isolate compartments. And with that change came a new sound. Faint at first, then clearer. Tapping. Not on my locker, on metal ductwork. Tap, tap, tap. Pause.
Tap.
Mina's signal again. Only Mina wasn't in the medbay. Mina was sealed in engineering, 2 compartments away. The tapping came closer. Dr. Sato's voice, his low moan, drifted through the locker door almost gentle, as if trying to soothe me into opening up. My eyes burned with tears. I forced my shaking hands to move. The medbay had an emergency vent control meant for fires. If you vented the compartment, you dumped atmosphere into space, starving a fire of oxygen. It was a last resort because it killed anyone still inside. But we were already inside. I crawled, still crouched, dragging the oxygen cylinder toward the locker's access panel. The small interface responded to my biometrics. My fingers hovered over the vent switch. I hesitated. Because Dr. Sato was still out there in the room. Not alive, maybe. But still, there. A body that had been a person. If I vented, I'd be killing him. If I didn't, whatever had become him would get into me. It would bond to me. It would turn my body into another tool. The locker door bowed inward slightly as something leaned on it. Not hard, patient. I hit VENT. Alarm screamed. The compartment lights snapped red. A mechanical voice announced pressure loss. Outside the locker, something slammed into the door, sudden, violent, no longer patient. The locker vibrated. Air began to hiss through seals, rising to a shriek as the medbay's pressure dropped. I clung to the oxygen cylinder, heart hammering, ears ringing. Through the locker door I heard movement, scraping, frantic. Then a heavy impact as a body hit something. A low moan surged into a strained, broken sound. Not words, just the vocal cords vibrating under panic. The sound faded as the air thinned. The hissing became louder than anything else. My vision tunneled. Then, silence. Not quiet. True vacuum silence as the compartment hit zero pressure. The locker seal held, the emergency system doing its job. I stayed crouched for a long time, shaking so hard my teeth clicked. On comms, Rourke's voice came through faintly, distorted by alarms.
Eli, report!
My throat felt raw. I vented medical, I croaked. A pause. Then Mina's voice, clipped but trembling.
Sato?
I swallowed. Gone, I said. Rourke didn't ask what I meant. Out here, you learn to understand fast.
Regroup in nav.
He ordered.
Alia's alone. We consolidate.
How? I whispered, staring at the locker door, imagining pale tendrils in the vents, imagining Thomas's wrong voice, imagining Dr. Sato's body floating in a red-lit vacuum outside this locker. Mina's voice cut in.
Eli, stay off vents. Stay out of open corridors. Whatever this is, it moves through the ship like it belongs here.
As if summoned by her words, the comm channel carried another sound. A scream. Jack's. It started loud and cut off abruptly, like someone had closed a fist around his throat. Then the low moan came again. Different cadence, different resonance. Not Thomas now. Jax's laugh shape flattened into a single note. I pressed my forehead to the locker wall and felt something in me fracture. Rourke's voice went hard.
All hands. Emergency. Assume multiple infections. Assume hostiles are not human conscious. Do not engage to subdue. Do not attempt rescue without restraint capability.
Alia's voice came out thin.
Captain, what do we do?
Rourke didn't answer immediately. In the silence, I heard the ship's ventilation continue to whisper despite Mina's efforts. Air still moved. It always did. The ship needed it. And anything riding the ducts would use that. Rourke finally said,
We survive.
his voice softened by a fraction. Not comfort, just resolve.
We survive long enough to make sure this doesn't leave the ship.
I stared at my bloody hands in the dim locker light, realizing with cold clarity what that meant. The Kestrel 7 was no longer a workplace. It was a containment problem. And we were trapped inside with it. The medbay stayed dead. After the alarms stopped screaming and the pressure readout stabilized at vacuum, the ship went quiet in a way that made my skin crawl. Not peaceful quiet. The kind of quiet you got when something had been removed, and the hole it left hadn't decided what to become yet. I crouched in the locker with my hands on the oxygen cylinder, waiting for my heartbeat to stop trying to escape through my ribs. The emergency locker had a tiny viewport, barely a slit of reinforced glass meant for checking if the compartment outside was on fire. I leaned in and peered through it. The medbay beyond was lit in pulsing red. Straps drifted in the thin remaining air currents before they settled. A tray of instruments floated a few centimeters off the deck, then clinked down as pressure equalized. The diagnostics chair sat crooked, its frame bent where Dr. Sato had grabbed it. Dr. Sato's body was not in view. That was its own kind of mercy. Or it meant something else. I forced myself to breathe slowly. I checked the locker's pressure gauge. Stable. Oxygen partial pressure within safe range for another, maybe 15 minutes, if I stayed calm and didn't hyperventilate myself to death. Outside, the Kestrel 7's ventilation kept whispering. Mina had tried to cut it down, but she couldn't kill it without killing us too. Airflow was life. That was the trap. The ship needed to breathe, which meant the ship would keep sharing its breath. On comms, Rourke's voice came again, tighter now.
Mercer, I need you mobile. Can you get out?
I can, I lied. I looked at the locker interface. The medbay pressure was at 0. Opening the locker door would mean stepping into vacuum. The locker had an emergency suit pack under the bench, not a full EVA suit, but a quick seal hood and torso wrap meant to get you through a depressurized corridor if you were lucky. Corporate called it evacuation assistance. Crew called it, maybe you don't die. I pulled it on with shaking hands, strapped the seal tight around my chest, and snapped the hood into place. The plastic faceplate fogged with my breath immediately. I wiped it with my sleeve and watched the condensation smear into nothing. I unlatched the locker. The door swung outward slightly as the pressure differential tugged it. I pushed it open and stepped into the medbay. Vacuum didn't feel like people thought. There was no wind, no roar, just an oppressive absence pressing against your skin, sucking moisture from your eyes and mouth even through the hood's seal. My ears popped hard, pain blooming behind them. Everything looked unreal in the red emergency lighting. Objects that had been stable were now just things waiting to drift if you touched them wrong. My own movement felt slow, like wading through invisible thick water. I crossed the medbay in 4 careful steps, boots finding purchase on the deck grating. I reached the manual door wheel and began to turn it. This door was designed to seal in fires. It was heavy. My arms shook with the effort. The wheel turned. The door's internal lock clicked. I waited. Nothing happened. Because the corridor beyond was still pressurized, and the ship wouldn't open a door from vacuum to atmosphere without cycling, unless you forced it and took the consequences. I keyed the emergency equalization canister. A hiss burst from the wall port, pumping air into the medbay. The red light blinked faster. Pressure climbed, slow, painfully slow. And as the medbay filled, the ship made sounds again. Metal creaks, fan whines, the familiar mechanical breath of a working compartment. I hated how comforting it was. When pressure reached threshold, the door unlocked fully. I spun the wheel and shoved. The corridor beyond was dim, lit by scattered emergency strips. A mist of condensation hung near the ceiling where cold metal met warmer air. Bulkheads were sealed down the hall, turning the ship into a sequence of locked boxes. I stepped out, closed the medbay behind me, and sealed it. I didn't look back. Because if Dr. Sato's body had returned, if it had somehow survived long enough to cling to a wall like a thing that didn't need air, I didn't have the strength to see that. I clipped the oxygen cylinder to my back and moved down the corridor toward Nav.
Mercer,
Mina's voice crackled over comms, tight and strained.
don't use the main corridor. I got one segment open, but the vents...
I know, I said, voice rough. I know. The corridor smelled faintly of coolant and old sweat. Normal ship smell. Normal until you remembered how quickly normal had broken. I rounded a junction and froze. There was a smear on the wall paneling, dark, wet. Not splashed, dragged. A line of something, blood, maybe, or hydraulic fluid, ran down to the deck grating where it pooled in a slow bead. I stared at it longer than I should have because my brain wanted to measure it, to make it make sense. Then I heard the sound. A low, drawn-out vibration, too steady to be a machine alarm. It came from somewhere ahead, behind a sealed bulkhead. A moan. Not words, not a plea. A sound built from a throat I recognized because I had listened to it for months. Jack's. It had his laugh shape flattened into a single note, like someone had taken the outline of his voice and filled it with something dead. My stomach lurched. The bulkhead ahead was sealed, its status light blinking amber. Whatever was on the other side was trapped, for now. I moved without thinking, hands on the manual wheel. If I opened it, maybe I could help him. Then I remembered Dr. Sato's eyes. I forced my hands to stop. My breath fogged my faceplate. Jax's moan came again, closer to the door now, and with it came a soft tapping on metal. Not Mina's pattern. A different rhythm. One Jax used when he wanted to be let in, when he thought it was funny to knock like a cartoon villain. A habit. Residue. My throat tightened. I backed away from the door like it might bite. I kept moving toward Nav, trying not to imagine what was behind me. The Nav compartment door was sealed, but Aaliyah answered my code on the first try. The hatch hissed open, and warm air spilled out like relief. Aaliyah was inside, back pressed to the wall, wrench in her hands like it was a weapon. Her eyes were swollen, cheeks wet. When she saw me, she made a sound like a sob caught mid-breath.
Eli,
She whispered.
Eli, you're...
Alive, I said. Her gaze flicked to my emergency hood, to the blood crusted on my hands.
Sato?
I swallowed. Gone. Aaliyah's lips trembled. She nodded once like she'd expected it, like expecting made it less deadly. Captain Rourke stood near the nav console, rifle in his hands. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in the last hour, not because his hair had changed, but because his face had lost whatever softness it had left. He didn't ask about Dr. Sato. He just nodded at my oxygen cylinder.
Good thinking,
He said. It wasn't thinking, I replied. Rourke's gaze sharpened, but he didn't argue.
Status.
He demanded.
What did you see?
Jax, I said. My voice cracked on the name. He's in a sealed corridor. I didn't open it. Aaliyah flinched. Rourke's jaw tightened.
Good. Don't.
The comm crackled with Mina's voice.
Nav, report.
Rourke keyed his mic.
We're consolidated. Mercer is with us. Aaliyah is secure. Engineering status?
Mina's breath came fast.
Engineering sealed. I've got manual controls. I've cut airflow to minimum in most segments, but the ducts still connect. Something is moving in them.
My hands clenched. Mina, are you infected? A pause. Then Mina's voice, sharp, offended even through fear.
No, not yet.
Aaliyah whispered.
Not yet.
Rourke looked at me.
Mercer, he said.
You saw it attached to Sato.
I nodded. Rourke's eyes narrowed.
Describe.
I hated that he made me do it. I understood why. It bonded,
I said.
It didn't latch and leave. It flattened along his back, melted through fabric, fused into his skin like living tape. Then My voice faltered. I swallowed. Then he wasn't him anymore. Rourke absorbed that in silence. Mina's voice came again, low.
Captain,
She said.
I've got Thomas's vitals on the rig monitor. It's still reading him as alive. Heart rate elevated, temp elevated, but his movement,
She paused.
it's wrong. It's too strong.
Rourke's eyes flicked to the ceiling vent above Nav. The grill sat there like a neutral object, and suddenly it wasn't neutral at all. Rourke said,
What does it want?
No one answered because none of us wanted to name it. I forced the words out. Bodies,
I said.
more hosts. Aaliyah squeezed her wrench so hard her knuckles went white.
To do what?
To make more of itself,
I said.
or to survive, or both. Rourke exhaled slowly.
Corporate will want it.
Mina's laugh was brittle through comms.
Corporate already wants it. They were listening to our drill feed.
Aaliyah's face went pale.
Listening?
Rourke's mouth flattened.
They sent instructions. They wanted a specimen.
Aaliyah stared at him like he'd just confessed to murder.
You told us to send the drone.
She whispered.
Rourke didn't flinch.
I followed contract.
He said.
Because contracts are what keep your families breathing after you die.
Aaliyah's eyes filled again. Rourke's gaze softened by the smallest fraction.
I'm not defending it.
He said.
I'm stating it. Now we deal with what we have.
Mina's voice cut in.
Captain, it's tapping.
What?
Aaliyah whispered. Mina's breath caught.
In the ducts. It's doing my signal.
Tap, tap, pause, tap. My stomach dropped. It's learned you,
I said.
Mina's voice went hard.
No. It's learned the ship.
Rourke looked at the nav display. The asteroid marker still blinking, still labeled in the system as a potential prophet.
We can't stay here.
He said.
Aaliyah shook her head, frantic.
We can't go anywhere. The corridors.
We have 2 escape pods.
Rourke said.
We abandon ship.
Mina swore.
Captain, you abandon ship and you bring it with you. It's in the ducts. It can get into a pod. It can bond to you in 10 seconds.
Aaliyah's face crumpled.
So what do we do?
Rourke's eyes fixed on the rifle in his hands, as if the metal might answer him.
We make sure it doesn't leave.
He said.
Silence held like pressure. I knew what he meant before he said it. Mina, I whispered, can we vent the whole ship? Mina's voice came quiet.
Not without dying.
She said. And if we do it in segments? I asked.
Maybe.
Mina said.
But it'll take time. And it'll take coordination. And something can move between the segments while you're cycling.
Rourke nodded slowly.
Then we don't vent it.
He said.
Aaliyah's voice went tiny.
Then what?
Rourke looked at the reactor access path on the ship map. His finger traced the route like a man reading a funeral plan.
We burn it.
He said.
Aaliyah made a strangled noise.
No.
Yes.
Mina said, voice flat as stone.
Yes, that's the only guarantee.
My hands started shaking again. Captain, there are eggs in that rock,
I said.
If we burn the ship, corporate will still go back. They'll still want the site. Rourke's gaze snapped to me.
Then we take the coordinates with us.
He said.
We don't give them anything.
Mina's voice laughed once, humorless.
They already have our drill feed. They have our logs. They have everything.
Rourke didn't deny it.
Then we erase what we can.
He said.
And we make sure this thing doesn't get a ride out.
Aaliyah stared at him, tears spilling.
You're talking about killing everyone on board,
she whispered.
Rourke looked at her, and the grief behind his eyes was so old it looked like part of him.
Most of us are already dead.
He said.
We're just still breathing.
The comm channel carried a faint sound then, soft at first, then clearer. A low moan. Not Thomas. Not Jack's, Dr. Sato's cadence. Aaliyah choked. I felt my stomach twist in a way that wasn't fear alone, because the sound wasn't coming from medbay. Medbay was sealed and vented and dead. The moan came through the vents above navigation. It drifted out of the grill like a sigh. Rourke raised the rifle and fired into the vent. Metal rang. Dust puffed out. The grill shook. The moan stopped. Then the tapping began. Tap, tap, tap. Pause.
Tap.
Mina's pattern again, now in nav. Aaliyah slapped her hands over her ears.
Please stop,
she whispered.
As if the ship could be reasoned with.
Rourke lowered the rifle. His voice went low and deadly.
We move,
he said.
Now. We go to reactor access and set overload. Mina, you trigger ignition from engineering if you can.
Mina inhaled sharply.
Engineering is between two infected compartments,
she said.
I can't leave.
I'm not asking you to.
Rourke said.
I'm asking you to do your job one last time.
Mina's voice went very quiet.
Understood,
she said.
Rourke looked at me.
Mercer?
He said.
You can rig the manual bypass?
I swallowed. Yes, I said. But I'll need access. Rourke nodded.
I'll get you there.
Aaliyah shook her head, trembling.
The corridors.
Rourke's face hardened.
We go anyway.
He opened the nav hatch. The corridor beyond was dim, emergency lights painting everything in sickly red. We moved in a tight line, Rourke first with the rifle, me behind with my oxygen cylinder and a cutter tool I'd grabbed from med storage. Aaliyah last with the wrench and terror. Every step sounded too loud. Every vent grill overhead felt like an eye. Halfway to reactor access, we passed a sealed compartment door with a dent in it, like something had hit it from the other side. A low moan
drifted through the seam, long, patient.
Rourke didn't look at it. Aaliyah did, and I saw her face break as she recognized the cadence.
Thomas,
she whispered.
The moan did not answer her name. It didn't know names, it knew bodies. Rourke forced us forward. As we reached the next junction, something moved at the far end of the corridor, fast, low, almost fluid. I glimpsed a shape, a person's silhouette but wrong at the shoulders, too broad, as if something was layered under the suit. It paused. Then it stepped into the emergency light. Jack's, or what had been Jack's. His suit was torn at the back and along the ribs, fabric softened where something pale had fused into him. Not a creature sitting on his face, not a dramatic parasite latched like a mask. Something integrated under the suit, bulging in patches like living insulation. His posture was off. His head tilted as if listening with an organ he didn't have before. His mouth opened. A low moan came out, Jax's laugh shape, stripped of humor, reduced to vibration. Aaliyah made a sound and stumbled back into me. Rourke raised the rifle. Jax's body, it, took one step toward us. Not aggressive. Not yet. Then it moved faster. It didn't rush like a predator aiming for a kill. It moved like a security officer moving to restrain someone. Hands out, posture forward, intent to capture. Rourke fired. The round hit Jax in the chest. The suit tore. Jax's body staggered, but it did not fall. It didn't even react with pain. It adjusted its balance like a machine compensating. Rourke fired again. Jax closed the distance anyway. The parasite patch along Jax's back bulged, and for a heartbeat I saw pale tendrils push under his collar like roots. Rourke stepped aside and swung the rifle butt into Jax's jaw. Jax's head snapped sideways with a crack. His mouth hung open. The moan shifted into something harsher, frustrated. Jax's arms shot out and grabbed Rourke's shoulders, not to rip, to hold, to pin. Rourke grunted, struggling, boots sliding on the deck plating. Aaliyah screamed. I lifted my cutter tool and hesitated. Because it was Jax's face. Because half my brain still expected him to make a joke. Half a second. That was all it took. Jax's grip tightened. Rourke's rifle slipped, clattering to the deck. Rourke's eyes met mine.
Mercer,
He barked.
move!
I snapped out of it. I stepped in and jammed the cutter tool into the seam of Jax's suit, where the pale patch pressed outward. I wasn't aiming for flesh. I was aiming for that interface, the point where human became tool. The cutter bit into fabric and then met resistance like tough rubber. Jax's body convulsed. The moan surged into a broken sound. Not pain. Alarm. The parasite reacted. Jax's grip loosened just enough. Rourke tore free and staggered back, chest heaving. Jax turned toward me. His eyes were open, but they weren't focusing on my face. They tracked my heat, my movement, my breath. He stepped toward me again, hands out. Aaliyah swung her wrench wildly, striking his forearm. Metal met bone. Jax didn't flinch. Rourke recovered his rifle, shoved the barrel under Jax's chin, and fired. The shot blew the helmet visor off in a spray of plastic fragments. Jax's head snapped back. For a heartbeat, his body went slack. Then it straightened again. The parasite patch along his neck thickened. Something under his skin moved, fast, reorganizing. Jax's mouth opened. The moan came out again, lower now, steadier. Rourke stared at him with something like despair.
It doesn't care,
He whispered. No,
I said.
It uses. Rourke grabbed Aaliyah's arm.
Run!
He snapped. We ran. Behind us, Jax moved, scraping, fast, following. Not sprinting, pursuing with certainty. Rourke slammed a bulkhead control at the next junction. The heavy door began to slide shut. Jax reached it just as the gap narrowed. His hands shot into the space, gripping the door edge. Metal groaned as he tried to stop it. Rourke fired into Jax's hands. The door continued closing. Jax's fingers, stubborn, strong, held for a second longer. Then the bulkhead sealed with a heavy clunk, cutting him off. The corridor fell quiet again. Only our ragged breathing remained. Aaliyah was sobbing, silent tears running down her cheeks. Rourke didn't comfort her. He couldn't. There wasn't time. We reached reactor access, a heavy hatch with a manual override wheel, designed for emergency isolation. Corporate hated manual overrides. Humans with choices were a liability. Rourke spun the wheel and shoved the hatch open. Warm air rolled out, thick with ozone and machine heat. Inside, the reactor chamber glowed behind shielding, a contained star that powered everything we'd ever done aboard this ship. The hum was deeper here, almost soothing. A heartbeat you could trust. Until you couldn't. Rourke stepped aside and kept the rifle aimed down the corridor.
Do it!
He told me. I dropped to my knees at the bypass panel, hands shaking. The interface was half digital, half mechanical, again, because corporate didn't fully trust software in emergencies. A sequence of toggles, a physical latch, a lockout key. My fingers moved on memory, not calm. This wasn't a drill. Aaliyah hovered near the hatch, wrench clutched in both hands like a prayer. Over comms, Mina's voice came.
I can trigger ignition,
She said.
but you have to disable auto shutdown.
I'm doing it, I said. Mina's breath hitched.
Eli,
What?
I can hear something in the duct above engineering.
Mina said, voice low.
It keeps mimicking my taps, like it's trying to convince me to open the hatch.
My mouth went dry. Don't,
I said.
Mina laughed once, bitter.
I'm not stupid.
She snapped. Then her voice softened.
Just hurry.
I flipped the final toggle. The panel light shifted from green to amber to steady red. Manual override engaged. Auto shutdown disabled. The reactor's hum deepened, like a throat clearing. Done,
I said.
Rourke's voice came hard.
Mina, ignite.
Mina didn't answer immediately. In that pause, the corridor behind Rourke filled with a sound. Scraping, thumping, something moving fast and heavy. Rourke's rifle snapped up. A shape emerged into the emergency light at the far end of the corridor. Tomas, or the thing using Tomas. He was still in his drill harness, but the metal frame had warped, fused in places to suit fabric. Pale patches bulged along his spine and shoulders, like thickened tissue pressing outward. His head was tilted in the same way Thomas used to tilt it when he was concentrating. His mouth opened. The moan came out with Tomas's cadence, the rhythm of Tomas about to speak. Aaliyah made a choking sound.
Thomas,
Rourke barked.
No!
Thomas moved, fast, too fast for a man in that harness. He charged toward the reactor hatch, arms out, again, not clawing, not tearing, reaching to grab, to hold, to bring bodies together. Rourke fired. The shots hit Thomas's chest and shoulder. His suit tore. He stumbled but kept coming. I scrambled backward, heart hammering. Rourke fired again, stepping back to keep distance. Tomas hit him. The impact slammed Rourke into the corridor wall with a grunt. Thomas's arms locked around him, pinning him hard. Rourke struggled, face contorted. Not pain, but horror. Because he understood what Tomas was doing, capturing, holding him still long enough for something smaller to move in and bond. Aaliyah screamed. I looked down the corridor and saw it, the pale shimmer of a parasite filament moving along the ceiling vent seam. A thin tendril slipping out, drawn by warmth, by proximity, by the promise of a new host. Rourke saw it too. His eyes snapped to mine.
Mercer!
He barked.
Finish it!
Finish it. Kill Thomas. Or kill the thing using him, or vent the corridor. There was no clean option. I lifted the cutter tool again and hesitated. Because Tomas had once handed me a coffee pouch when my hands were shaking. Because Tomas had once asked me to send a message to his wife when comms were down, trusting me with words that weren't mine. Half a second. That half second almost killed us all. Aaliyah moved, not toward Thomas, toward the reactor hatch control.
No!
Rourke shouted. Aaliyah's face was shattered by grief.
I'm sorry,
She sobbed. She slammed the hatch control. The heavy reactor door began to slide shut. Rourke fought Thomas's grip, straining, trying to wrench free. Tomas's arms tightened like a clamp. The pale filament above them slipped further out of the vent, sensing opportunity. The hatch gap narrowed. Rourke's eyes met mine through the closing space. In that look there was no blame, only understanding. He knew he was done. He knew he was choosing to be the barrier. The hatch sealed with a heavy clunk. Rourke and Thomas were on the other side. Aaliyah collapsed, sobbing on the deck. I stared at the sealed hatch, ears ringing. The ship's comm crackled. Mina's voice came strained and urgent.
Captain? Eli, what happened?
I swallowed hard. Rourke's sealed out,
I said.
A pause. Then Mina, quiet.
Okay.
Not okay, not remotely okay. But Mina understood what okay meant in the belt. I grabbed Aaliyah by the shoulder. Pods, I said. Now. Aaliyah looked up at me with eyes full of guilt.
I killed him,
she whispered. You saved us, I said, even though the words tasted like ash. Aaliyah shook her head violently.
No.
I tightened my grip. Move,
I said.
We ran. We ran through corridors lit red, past sealed bulkheads that thumped softly from the wrong side, past vents that seemed to watch us. The ship felt different now, not just dangerous, purposeful, as if the parasites had learned the map, as if the ship was becoming their nest. We reached the pod bay, a narrow compartment with 2 escape shells mounted like bullets. Pod 1. Pod 2. Corporate didn't believe in redundancy unless it was profitable. Aaliyah stumbled toward Pod 1, hands shaking so hard she fumbled the latch. I shoved her into the seat and strapped her down, my own fingers clumsy. Aaliyah grabbed my wrist.
Eli,
She gasped.
you come with me.
I will, I lied, because I knew what I had to do. If I left without setting the overload timer, the ship might not burn. Mina might fail, the parasites might survive, and if the ship didn't burn, corporate would come. They'd board, they'd salvage, they'd spread it. Aaliyah's grip tightened.
Please, she whispered.
I leaned in close enough that my breath fogged her visor. Launch, I said softly.
Now.
Aaliyah's face crumpled. Then she nodded, a single jerky motion. She hit the launch. The pod hatch sealed with a hiss. Clamps released. Pod 1 shot out into the void, a small bright thing fleeing the dark. I watched it vanish through the viewport and felt something in my chest tear. Then I turned to Pod 2. A sound came from the corridor behind us, scraping fast, approaching. A low moan drifted with it. Tomas's cadence now, flattened. I shoved myself into Pod 2 and slammed the hatch. The pod's console blinked. Auto launch ready. My hands hovered over the manual detonation timer control. It required a code. My code. My fingers shook as I entered it. Timer set. 000600. 6 minutes, long enough to clear blast range. Short enough that nothing would have time to find a new exit. I hit confirm. The pod shook as clamps released. It launched. The Kestrel 7 fell away behind me, her lights still blinking red, her shape still familiar, and suddenly painfully fragile. For a moment, I saw the asteroid on the pod's screen. Still tumbling, still marked, still waiting. The timer counted down. I sat strapped in, breathing recycled air, hands bleeding, trying not to imagine what was happening aboard the ship in those last minutes. Trying not to imagine Rourke behind that sealed hatch. Trying not to imagine Mina alone in engineering with tapping in the vents. Trying not to imagine something slipping into Pod 1 with Aaliyah. At 000000, the Kestrel 7 bloomed. A sudden, violent light. A star born and dying at once. The blast wave hit my pod as a shudder through the hull. My teeth clacked. My vision blurred. On the rear camera, I watched debris scatter into darkness like sparks. No ship, no evidence, no containment failure, just fragments and light. I should have felt relief. I felt hollow. 2 days later, corporate found me. Not a rescue beacon, not a goodwill patrol. A tug with false registry tags and a clean hull. It docked with my pod with mechanical precision. The airlock cycled. Men in sealed suits stood waiting. Mirrored faceplates. No visible names. No visible insignia beyond a small geometric mark on the shoulder. The kind of symbol that meant, "We aren't accountable to your laws." A scanner swept over my body. It lingered at my throat scar. It lingered at my hands. One of the men said, "Subject recovered." Subject, not survivor, not employee, not human. They sedated me before I could speak. I woke with corporate cuffs on my wrists and a headache like someone had poured sand into my skull. Halcyon Outpost 7 again. Same holding cell, same bad light, same smell of recycled air. Only now the outpost guards wouldn't look at me. They treated me like a leak. A corporate rep visited me once, clean jacket, perfect hair, smile that didn't reach his eyes. He held a slate like it contained my entire life in neat columns.
"You destroyed company property,"
he said. "I destroyed a nest," I rasped. The rep's smile held.
"You destroyed company property,"
he repeated, because repetition was a weapon when you owned the room. "I saved you,"
I said.
The rep tilted his head, curious like a scientist watching a rat insist it wasn't a rat.
"We will determine that,"
he said.
I forced myself to sit up straighter. "Don't go there,"
I said.
"Don't send anyone to that asteroid." The rep's eyes stayed calm.
"Coordinates,"
he said softly. I laughed once. Short, ugly. "You think I'm giving you coordinates?" The rep's smile thinned by a fraction.
"You will,"
he said. "Eventually."
I stared at him, sweat cold on my spine. "I blew the ship,"
I said.
"You can't salvage anything."
"You'd be surprised what we can salvage,"
the rep said. He tapped the slate with one finger.
"Your nav logs, your comms, your drill feed, your crew's biometrics, all recorded."
My throat went dry. "Then why keep me?" The rep's smile returned to full calibration.
"Because you were there,"
he said.
"and memories are useful."
That was when I understood what no charges meant. It wasn't punishment. It wasn't justice. It was processing. They weren't building a case. They were building a pipeline. They kept me alive. They fed me. They didn't beat me. They didn't need to. Every day the same thought pressed against my skull like a thumb. They will go back. They will call it research. They will call it salvage. They will call it progress. And if they can't pull the coordinates from the ship, they'll pull them from me. Then a marshal arrived. Not corporate, not clean. A woman with tired eyes, a worn coat, and a ship that smelled like metal and stubbornness. She looked at my paperwork and frowned like she could see the absence where law should have been. She didn't promise me anything. She didn't ask me to beg. And that made me speak. Not because I thought she could stop corporate, because I needed someone outside the corporate loop to carry the shape of what happened, so it couldn't be erased cleanly. So when corporate went back, at least one person would know the truth of what they were walking into.
Mercer's voice finally ran down, leaving a silence that felt too big for the Sable's small cabin. Sera sat with both hands on the pilot chair's armrests, fingers locked so tight her joints ached. She realized she'd been holding her shoulders up near her ears, like she'd been bracing for impact. Outside the canopy, the lane shimmered, stars smeared into pale lines. Space looked like a bruise you could fall into. Inside, everything was ordinary. Instrument lights, recycled air, the soft hum of machinery. And yet Sera couldn't stop looking at the vents. Mercer had said the ship keeps sharing breath. He'd said it learned the ship. He'd said it bonded. Sera cleared her throat.
They kept you.
She said, voice controlled.
Because they want you to confirm what their logs already showed.
Mercer nodded once.
They want me to say it, to sign it, to make it official.
He swallowed.
And they want whatever's left of my memory to be clean enough to use.
Sera's jaw clenched.
That's not detention.
Mercer's laugh was thin.
No.
Sera stared at him, trying to map his story onto reality. People lied. Prisoners lied. Everyone lied when lying kept them alive. But this didn't feel like a lie built to win sympathy. It felt like a confession built to lodge in the listener's skull. Sera's gaze dropped to his hands. The raw knuckles, the split skin, The way his fingers twitched sometimes like he was still feeling hooks that weren't there.
You said Aaliyah launched.
Sera said quietly.
Did she make it?
Mercer's eyes flicked up, and something broke in them. Tiny, fast, like a crack in glass.
I don't know,
he said. Corporate never told me. Halcyon guards wouldn't answer. The rep said no other survivors were recovered. Sera exhaled through her nose.
Convenient.
Mercer nodded, tired.
Yeah.
They sat like that for a long moment. Two people in a ship between places, held together by a story neither could prove. Finally, Sera said,
You know what happens when I deliver you.
Mercer didn't pretend not to.
Yes,
he said. Sera wanted, stupidly, to ask him what he wanted her to do instead. But the question was a trap. He could say, let me go, and she'd have to either refuse or become the kind of person who got herself killed for a stranger. He didn't ask. He just looked at the deck plating like it held an answer.
Mercer,
Sera said. He lifted his eyes.
do you have any reason?
She asked.
To believe you're contaminated?
Mercer's mouth tightened.
if I was,
He said slowly.
you wouldn't have gotten me out of Halcyon. Corporate wouldn't have put me in a normal cell. They'd have put me in a freezer.
That's not a guarantee.
Sera snapped before she could soften it. Mercer didn't argue. He just nodded like he agreed and had been living with the same fear. Sera turned back to her instruments and flew. The rest of the trip passed in a thin, tense routine. She kept her ship's air circulation on manual, running higher filtration than she needed, just to feel like she was doing something. She wiped vent grills with sterilizing wipes she didn't fully trust. She slept in short bursts. Twice she woke thinking she'd heard tapping. Once she found nothing. Once she found Mercer awake, staring at the ceiling, listening. Neither of them commented. Cardenas arcology came into view like a jewel with teeth. A wheel of habitat rings and corporate towers, lights arranged in tasteful grids, docking lanes blinking with confident precision. No visible patchwork, no exposed pipes, no grime. A place that didn't tolerate ugliness because ugliness happened elsewhere. The Kestrel Asset Detention Node hung off one spoke. Smooth hull, no windows, too many antennas. A chime sounded on Sera's console. Transfer lane assigned. Remain with subject until receipt. Sera guided the Sable into the docking cradle. Clamps latched with a heavy shudder. For a moment, she sat still and looked at her own reflection in the canopy glass. Tired eyes. Tight jaw. A woman about to do what she'd been paid to do. She unbuckled and stood. Mercer was already on his feet in the forward compartment, as if he'd been waiting for the moment the ship stopped moving. His posture was straight, controlled, not resigned. Prepared. Sera clipped his tether to her belt and led him to the airlock. The detention node's corridor beyond was bright, sterile, faintly antiseptic. It didn't look like a jail. It looked like a hospital that had forgotten what care was. Corporate soldiers waited at the checkpoint. Helmets on, faceplates mirrored. Their armor seams were sealed. Their rifles were held in that relaxed, not relaxed way that told you they'd practiced being calm while holding power. A small geometric symbol marked their shoulders. One soldier stepped forward. The voice through the helmet speaker was smooth, filtered.
Marshal Kade, transfer?
Sera nodded.
Eli Mercer.
She said.
Conscious. Cooperative. No incidents in transit.
The soldier's helmet tilted slightly.
Present subject for receipt verification.
Sera stopped at the sensor arch. Mercer stopped beside her. Neither of them argued the point. Sera pulled out her slate. The file was still wrong, still empty where law should have been, still redacted like someone had taken a blade to it. She handed it over anyway. Another soldier stepped forward with a scanner and swept it over Mercer's face, wrists, throat. A soft tone sounded.
Biometric match confirmed,
The soldier said. No name. No sir. No Mr. Mercer. Just confirmation that the package matched the label. The first soldier held out a gloved hand.
Custody lock.
Sera's jaw tightened.
He's already restrained.
Corporate restraints must remain engaged.
The soldier replied.
Custody lock required.
Sera looked at Mercer. Mercer didn't look back. He stared down the corridor that angled away into the facility's depths, as if he could already see the rooms without windows. Sera keyed her restraint interface. Her cuffs released with a polite chime. Corporate cuffs remained. Corporate soldiers stepped in and snapped their own restraints onto Mercer. Heavier, sealed, no visible release. A light blinked amber, then green.
Receipt confirmed,
The first soldier said. Sera's slate pinged. Transfer complete. Liability terminated. Thank you for your service. Thank you felt like an insult. The soldiers guided Mercer forward, hands on elbow and shoulder, firm but not violent, like escorting a specimen. Mercer walked without resistance. He didn't plead. He didn't try to convince Sera one last time. He didn't ask her to save him. He simply moved forward, because forward was the only direction corporate had left him. As he walked, something slipped from his pocket and clinked against the sterile floor. A flat metal token, worn smooth, edges rubbed soft by countless fingers. A cheap scrap charm. A crew's stupid game. Sera's eyes dropped to it before she could stop them. One of the soldiers stepped on it without looking, pinning it under a heavy boot. The token disappeared beneath corporate weight as if it had never mattered. Mercer didn't react. Sera's throat tightened anyway. The corridor swallowed him in seconds. Doors parted, sealed behind. Then he was gone. Sera stood at the checkpoint longer than she should have, staring at the place his back had been. Not his face, not his eyes. His back, because it was the last honest thing she'd seen. A man walking because he had no other choice. The soldier's helmet turned slightly toward her. A subtle reminder. Move along. Sera forced herself to turn. As she did, she caught a glimpse of a small icon on the checkpoint display, just for a moment, in the corner of a corporate intake screen. A hazard marker. Biocontainment. It could have meant anything. Corporate used bioprotocols for dust exposure, fungal spores, contaminated water, mundane risks of frontier work. Or it could have meant Mercer's story had been true enough that corporate was already preparing. Sera walked back to her ship. Inside the Sable, the air smelled like metal and old coffee and human stubbornness. The airlock clunked shut behind her, and for a moment she felt like she could breathe again. She stood in the corridor and listened to the ship's vents. A steady whisper. Nothing more. Sera told herself what she'd told herself 100 times in her career. Prisoners lied. People invented horrors to escape consequences. Trauma made memories unreliable. And still, she saw the egg chamber in her mind, arranged like a garden. She heard the low moan in a familiar voice, stripped of meaning. She remembered Mercer's calm as he spoke. No heroism, no performance, just a man trying to leave a mark somewhere outside corporate hands. She went to the cockpit and sat in the pilot chair. Outside, Cardenas Arcology glowed, clean, confident, hungry. Her console chimed with a new incoming contract notification. Sera didn't open it. She stared at the dark beyond the arcology lights and wondered, with a slow heaviness that settled into her bones, whether Mercer's tale was true, or whether it was just another story a prisoner told to make a marshal hesitate. And the thought that came after was worse. If corporate wanted something back from the dark, would the truth change anything?
Thanks for watching Echo Forge. If this story resonated with you, leave a comment, hit like, and subscribe so the next tale finds you. Share this with someone who loves dark fantasy or twisted sci-fi, and I'll see you in the next world.